into reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion. For the sake of the world, this delusion. It's gotta go.
We're coming to you live from a vortex, apparently. But how's everybody doing? We're live. It's the Atheist Experience. Today is Sunday, December 6, 2009. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Jeff D. Welcome back.
Hi, Matt. Hi, folks.
Filling in, we had some substitutions. Everything looks kind of dark. I don't know if it looks dark there. It almost looks like I'm, maybe some kind of monk with a halo, and who knows.
I'm sure I don't. I have this lovely special effect here on my chest today.
Yeah, Jeff is partially see-through, which
that's right.
We didn't plan, but we'll take it.
Iron Man chest thingy.
As you'd expect, this is live TV. This is a live public access television program sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road beginning at around 11:30, except for the first Sunday of the month when we host the lecture series at the Austin History Center beginning around 12:30. That's located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. This morning was a lecture. We had Dr. Jay Banner come down and talk. I've heard it was really good. I was unable to make it. We'll have the January lecture information available at the website, www.atheist-community.org, where you can go to find more information about the ACA, including a frequently asked questions page, information on our other efforts, and a schedule of events. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. That's PROPHETS. And you can go to nonprofitsradio.com for more information. I laughed at the bi-weekly because we've really been off the air for a couple of months now. But there will be, I'm happy to announce, a special end-of-the-year edition of the Nonprofits on December 19th. And it'll probably be a much longer show than normal. We'll get the podcast out, and we'll also hopefully be able to announce when the show will be resuming its regular schedule, which will be some Saturday in January, and then we'll be back on our bi-weekly normal schedule. In addition to the media outreach programs that the ACA is involved with, we also have a number of social events, including the brunch that was previously mentioned. And after this program's over, we get together and go to dinner at Threadgill's on Riverside. We're on the air till 6 o'clock. We'll be down there around 6:30 or so. Also, there's a happy hour on Thursdays at the Dog and Duck Pub beginning at around 7 p.m. See, I can't read that. But anyway, it's 301 West Riverside Drive. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to any of our events. You don't have to be a member to attend, but if you're coming down to preach, proselytize, provoke, pester, punch, any of those things, please don't. This is a live call-in program that we simultaneously stream over the internet. You can find out more information at the website for the TV show. That's atheist-experience.com, and there's information there about how to connect and watch the stream live every Sunday from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Central Time, and you can participate in the chat room if you're a really brave soul, and you can call in from anywhere. They'll have the number up for you. Ooh, we've changed colors. We'll have the number up for you shortly. As a matter of fact, we'll probably get the number up in just a minute. I want to go ahead and show the schedule if I can, because we've missed 2 weeks. The studio was closed for training for 2 weeks ago, and then was closed for an extended Thanksgiving holiday last week. This is December 6th. And everybody knows that there's this crazy holiday thing going on up here. But you'll be able to notice right there on the list, we're on every week, the 13th, the 20th, the 27th, the 3rd, and the 10th. We're not going to be interrupted, as far as we know, for any special events. So it'll be show after show after show after show, doing what we can to make up for the downtime over the last couple of weeks. And we're very appreciative of all the people who have been patient with us while we did the summer at Dillahunty International Studios. Now that we're back in the studio, we had a number of audio problems that plagued us for a few weeks. Some very helpful listeners sent in information. We also had Frank and Joe and Steve and John and Shelley and everybody in the back desperately working to figure out what went wrong in this studio renovation that prevented us from being able to take calls without feedback and everything. We think we've got it solved. Last week, or the last episode 3 weeks ago, went pretty well without too many problems, and everything looks like it's working today. So I think we're back up and running, and the next thing to do is to send out pamphlets to every church in Austin so that the theistic callers start tuning in and calling like they used to. But I think that I've mentioned all of the actual ACA announcements that I had to get out of the way. So we can go ahead and put the telephone number up for people to call in. We have not, for those curious, have not started taking Skype calls again. That's next in the integration list for improving the Atheist Experience TV show, and we'll take a look at that in the coming weeks. Now that we've got these audio problems sorted, I think we'll probably have a chance to start taking Skype calls again. So, what are you up to, Jeff?
Oh, working on my computer game project that I've been on since February, and stuff like that. You?
I enjoyed the first long weekend off in ages.
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving weekend, because my family doesn't live in town. I went to dinner with some friends, and then I sat on my butt and did nothing for 3 days. It was awesome. It was the first time in recent memory that I had 3 or 4 days to just do nothing. But
Yep.
so now that I've announced to everybody who was complaining about not doing enough that I was a complete slacker for 3 days, we'll get right on to the show and start taking calls. We've got, is it Ryan from Milwaukee?
Hi.
Hi,
Hi, Ryan.
Is this Ryan?
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
What can we do for you, Ryan?
Well, I was wondering, what do you think about, can a belief in God be beneficial to a person? Do you think yes or no?
Sure. But obviously we're atheists, so we don't think that overall it's beneficial. But sure, you can point to specific things where it might be helpful, like, being accepted by your community. That could be helpful. Did you have some particular kind of benefit in mind?
I was just thinking, like, it would give someone a sense of satisfaction and maybe a purpose.
Okay. Sure, it could do that.
Okay.
Is that all you wanted? I mean,
well, yeah.
That, like I said, we're atheists. We've looked at the issue, and we think the costs outweigh the benefits. And one of the big costs is you wind up believing something that there's really no good reason to.
Okay, but what is exactly bad about believing something that there's no good reason to?
Well, are you familiar with the state of evolution education in the United States?
Yes.
That's driven by a bunch of people who believe something for no good reason, and thinking it's important then to get other people to believe the same thing, and as it comes into conflict with something there is a good reason to believe, which is evolution, and that's an unnecessary conflict.
And I think there's another example too that you might think of, because we've never said that there's no benefit. You could find benefits for almost anything. There's a benefit to taking heroin. You feel good for a while. But my concern is more about truth. For example, and you asked, kind of what's the harm in believing something if it makes you feel good? Well, do you? What if you believed that you had won the lottery? You didn't have any good evidence, and you didn't have any reason to think that it was actually true, but you believed that you won the lottery. What you believe is going to change how you act. Or you're going to go on and you might feel good. Hey, all of a sudden I'm rich. But if you start acting as if you're rich when you're actually not, then you're doing harm long term. You're going to run up bills and spend money you don't have and find yourself in a terrible situation afterwards.
Right. So that happy feeling has a cost. That's what we're talking about.
Though.
How's that?
Well, because like you said, if you think you won the lottery and then you run up bills and whatever, it's going to come back and get you.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a belief in God, you'll never know until you die.
Well,
so it doesn't really...
But it's not... The consequences of religious belief here in the U.S. are, things like the interference with evolution education, which is a consequence that is happening now. We don't have to wait until Christians die in order to find out whether they were correct in interfering with the teaching of evolution. This is a problem
that's
now.
More specific than believing in a God, because
well,
people who believe in God,
but there are,
I think maybe even the Pope does. I mean,
but beliefs have implications, and the rejection. There are of course people who believe in God that accept evolution, right? But a lot of them don't. And the ones that may think that evolution is okay, even though they believe in God, may reject medicine. We've got what is that? Christians that are against taking medicine and wind up killing their kids.
Christian scientists,
Christian
and
scientists,
Jehovah's Witnesses.
right? These are all those other beliefs that are related to the belief in God are part of an entire belief system that naturally forms around any view that you have. And if the core of it is not true, all of this stuff is unnecessary. But there are problems that are caused right here and now. It's not simply a question of, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, and they'll find out when they die.
I mean, do you have, I'm assuming that you perhaps have some belief in a God.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Now, does your particular belief, because you seem to be asking, is it possible to have a benign belief in a God?
Yeah, that's right.
Sure. And as far as I can tell, it's largely irrelevant. And there are a lot of people who believe in a God who completely separate that or segregate it so that it doesn't affect any decisions that they're going to make. And if you can actually do that to that extent, then my response is, okay, what's the point? I mean, what is it? I mean, if you just believe something because it makes you feel good.
Well, the point is because it makes you feel good. I mean, what's the bigger point than that?
Right. If somebody never took actions that were based on that belief, my only objection would be that they believe something that's not demonstrably true. And I don't necessarily...
Why object to that even?
Well,
because that is objected to on principle. Yeah, it could be. You could find somebody who believes in a God, but acts as if that God does not exist. It doesn't change their behavior, doesn't react to situations they encounter in life any differently than someone who does not believe in that God. That's possible. And maybe you're one of those people. But a lot of people aren't, and that doesn't change the fact that fundamentally it's better to believe true things than false things. Or let me rephrase that and say it's better to believe things that you have a good reason to believe instead of just believing things that make you feel good. There's all kinds of things you could believe just because they make you feel good, and a lot of those things, if you really believe them, are going to change the way that you behave. And if the things you're believing that because they feel good are not true, then the changes that they make in your behavior are going to be counterproductive. Now, that principle is valid even if you can find isolated cases of people whose belief in the God is so minimal that it doesn't affect their behavior at all.
Okay.
Now, can I ask a quick question? Do you think it would
Sure.
would you prefer to have your beliefs be consistent with reality? Because what you seem to be describing is what's wrong with me having a comfortable delusion? And my response is, if you enjoy having a comfortable delusion, that's your prerogative. But I am not comfortable with that, and I think that we can demonstrate that having a worldview that is consistent with reality and as delusion-free as possible is the best way to go about making decisions. Because even though you may think that your God belief doesn't really have any effect on anything else, it seems to me that in order to justify that, you have to commit some logical fallacy. You have to train your brain, or your brain has to have been trained, to accept non-truths that are comforting. And while it may not necessarily fall into a slippery slope, any brain that is trained to accept delusions because they're comfortable in preference to truth is one that is likely to repeat this same error in other errors in other areas where the consequences are much more dire. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, but I think in many cases people often separate like reality from their beliefs. So, I mean, I know many people who have a belief in God. In fact, most of the country does, and aside from a few people, I don't know, terrorism or whatever, most people seem to have pretty normal lives, despite the fact that they believe in God. That's like 80%, I'd say, but not everyone.
Yeah, I think partly is you may have some confusion about what it is that we would object to. I mean, obviously, I'd prefer that I lived in a world full of people who were free from delusion, who cared about truth, who were working together, towards the betterment of society. But the average person who just believes in a God and doesn't really let it affect anything in their daily lives, I don't consider them to be of any great harm, with the exception of the fact that they provide cover for those who do. This is something that Sam Harris has come up, has mentioned on numerous occasions, and that is that liberal and moderate believers provide safe sanctuary for the fundamentalists and extremists. The extremely vocal and well-funded minority of this majority that would seek to limit the rights and freedoms of others, and by using the same labels, the same holy books, they kind of give validation to ideas that are demonstrably, obviously harmful, in order to protect their own comfortable delusion. And I'd say that means that there is a problem. Maybe not for the individual. You have to look at this beyond the individual. I may be comfortable my entire life believing something that's not true, but that belief, I don't live in a vacuum. I share a planet with other people. So my beliefs inform my actions have consequences, and this probably is out to everybody.
Anything else, Ryan?
That's it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for calling.
Yep, thanks for taking my call.
Sure, appreciate it.
Yeah, this reminds me of a billboard I saw driving down to the studio today. Some local church is advertising on a billboard that that their church is exciting and new and different because they talk about ecology. It's like, wow, we're they're like mixing ecology and theology is the way that they're marketing it. And while I certainly appreciate any Christianity-based religion that gets away from the notion that, God gave us control of the planet and we're free to do whatever we want to with it and not worry about consequences, and B, God will step in and fix everything anyway. Therefore, we're against all ecological concerns. I certainly appreciate a church that sets that aside and doesn't go that way. But to me, misses the point entirely. The reason we should care about our planet's ecosystem is because we live here, and it has nothing to do with any invisible men in the sky and what they did or did not give us and what their opinions are about things. There are perfectly secular reasons why we should be concerned, and as far as I can tell, it has nothing to do with church or theology. Yeah. So that's just making the same kind of argument that Ryan was making, that, our incarnation of believing in things we can't prove doesn't make us be flagrantly obviously wrong on this particular issue. Well, good for you. But ultimately, what matters is is reality and not your superstitions.
Yeah, it's like, and we're talking about obviously religions that are breaking away from orthodox views.
Yeah.
And if your orthodox view includes these 100 precepts and these 50 are demonstrably harmful and wrong, and you say, well, we're going to get rid of those, we're only going to keep this 50. Okay, well, now you're closer to reality. And then the next church comes along and says, well, we're going to get rid of these things here and we're going to focus on this. And we're going to pull in these secular ideas, these responsible ideas about ecology and things like that. And so now we've only got 10% of the crazy that we used to have. Congratulations. And when you get all the way to joining the rest of us in reality, then maybe you'll understand.
Welcome aboard. Yeah.
Why we complain.
Exactly.
We have, I think, John from London, who was on the last show but ran out of time. John, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi, John.
Yeah, you told me last week to, it's echoing. You told me last week to prove God's existence in less than 1 minute, right?
I told you only had a minute left on the show, but yeah.
Yeah. That's such a big subject, so where do you start? Well, you should start at the burden of proof, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And my point is this. Throughout the ages, billions and billions of people has believed in God. You would agree with that, right?
Yes.
All the way to 6,000 years ago, people has always believed in God. And now recently, all these atheists are coming up and say, no, there is no God. So in my logic, the burden of proof is on you.
Well, you don't get to have your own logic. There is logic, and it has rules. And those billions of people who've believed in God...
What right do you think you have
the
when
billions,
you are this small
excuse me?
minority coming
John?
here and telling us
Can
what
you not
to
hear me?
believe?
May not be able to. There was an echo.
John, the thing is, those billions of people that believe throughout history have never proved that the God existed. Now, they had a pass because so many people believed that it didn't get questioned. But that does not mean that they have escaped the burden of proof. They still have the burden of proof.
They have been proven through personal experiences. They have seen what God can do in their lives, and that's why they believe, and that's why you can't get it scientifically.
So you're accepting that the burden of proof is on those who claim to know that the God exists, right?
No, it's on those who claim that they know that God doesn't exist.
Well, I would agree with that, except that
you
we're not claiming that.
You just said that they had the proof. You just said that the believers had the proof, and you said it's this and that and the other.
They prayed for Jesus Christ to appear, and he appeared, or something like that. That's
Great, fantastic. We can just get that done under laboratory conditions. No problem. His existence is proved.
Yeah, but that's
you can't. What you can't do, John, is you can't simultaneously claim that the proof exists and then refuse to shoulder the burden of the proof.
Personal experience. The proof is personal experience that can't really be provided as proof for someone else, and that's
so that's not
God
proof.
Works.
No. That proof. No.
This
Excuse
is
me.
how God works.
Excuse me. Proof that you can't show to someone else is not proof.
It may be the case. It may be the case that an individual is personally justified based on their personal experience, but this can't be. But this can't be demonstrated to anybody else. So if Jesus appeared,
and that's how God works.
John, hang on just a second. I promise I'm going to let you talk. If Jesus appears to you personally, just shows up, bam, there he is.
Yes.
You may be justified in your belief, but I wouldn't be justified in believing based on what happened to you. Revelation is necessarily first person.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, so what reason do we have to believe? I'm not telling you that you shouldn't believe if you have proof. I'm saying that until you can demonstrate proof, I'm not going to believe, and I do not see that your belief is justified.
Jesus Christ has appeared to me when I prayed for him, and that's how I justify my own belief. And then you have guys like Kent Hovind and Ray Comfort and the Way of the Master, and they can prove scientifically for you how the Bible is correct. Basically.
No, they can't.
They have
you think we're not aware of those guys and their arguments?
And actually, I'm starting to think that this is a prank call because you picked two of the dumbest, most batshit crazy ass-hattery guys on the planet.
Yeah, I know. They have... Kent Hovind has a bad reputation at the moment because he was sent to jail, so I can understand that. But I'm not a prank call. I don't appreciate that you call me a prank call.
I didn't. I said I suspected that this might be a prank call. And in any case, you're referencing Kent Hovind, Dino Man, a guy who thinks that the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old.
Yeah, and I do too.
Well, unfortunately, reality completely disproves that and disagrees with your personal opinion.
What evidence do you have to make that claim?
What evidence?
We're not the ones. We are not the ones making the claim. Scientists.
You just made the claim.
We're informing you of what is said by people who professionally study these things. So if you have a problem with that, you go ahead and argue with paleontologists, with cosmologists. Go ahead and do that. All we are doing is we are accepting the findings of people who have seriously spent decades studying what the facts are.
And the Christians have spent thousands of years studying the Bible.
Okay.
And you think that that studying a book written 2,000 years ago
to me.
I'm afraid this guy is just not letting us talk. You're going to let me finish, or we're going to hang up on you.
Okay, finish.
So you think that people having studied one book over a period of 2,000 years is on the same footing as people who have spent centuries of diligent, serious, peer-reviewed scientific work studying the world around us? Really?
I'm going to answer that with an analogy. How old is The Origin of Species?
The book?
What difference does it make? Do you think that scientists, that biologists now think that evolution happened because they study that one book? Is that where you're going with this? No, that's complete nonsense. That is complete nonsense. You have no idea what scientists actually do. They take claims and they actually test them. And they do it not just inside their own head, where they can have a feeling that Jesus has appeared to them because they prayed to him. They do this under laboratory conditions where they can demonstrate the results to others. What they have to say is valid and worth paying attention to.
Yeah, but you can't do that with God.
You're right, you can't. And therefore, by corollary, what religious believers say has happened to them personally does not deserve to be taken seriously for that exact same reason.
Let me answer that. Let me answer that statement.
I'm fine.
Sure.
Basically, God wants to prove himself personally.
And you know this how?
Because it's in the Bible, and that's how it.
And you know the Bible, the Bible accurately reflects the opinions of a cosmic universe creator. How?
Because it's the only thing we have.
Because it says so?
I know where you're going with this. You're trying to make me look like a circular argument.
No,
right?
You've already done that. We're just asking. He asked, how do you know what God wants? And you referred to the Bible. And then he asked, how do you know that the Bible's reliable? And you said, because it has to be, or because we don't have anything else. Yeah, we do. We have something called reality and investigation and science and testing and all of these wonderful things that we've discovered that actually allow us to filter fact from fantasy. That's what we have. The fact that you're relying, why do you dismiss, for example, the Quran? Why don't you get your information from the Quran as opposed, why aren't you a Muslim?
Well, because the Muslim religion was founded by a pedophile.
Okay, and your religion was founded by a band of murdering, raping, pillaging Jews.
That's offensive.
It's true. It's in your Bible. I'm sorry. I agree. It is offensive.
Calling Muhammad a whatever, I forget the exact terms you used, pedophile, was not offensive to Muslims? You get to not be offended, but they have to sit there and take it?
But it's right in the book. I read the Quran, and it says so right in the book.
This guy's a
Really?
buffoon. Can we just
you
move
are
on?
either a prank caller or a buffoon. I apologize to everybody else for wasting so much time on you. Two shows worth of so much time.
All right.
Unbelievable. Oh, it's in the Bible, and that's all we've got. No, we've
Yeah,
got it might be all you've got.
That is all you've got if you reject everything else.
It reminds me
And you
of
have to reject everything else when you're living in the modern world where we've learned a whole bunch of things that just, dispute the claims of the Bible.
Yeah, I love it that,
That
thankfully,
previous caller, Ryan, who was concerned about, the negative consequences of believing in a God, excellent example in that last call. Excellent example.
I love the fact that while America is often viewed by my friends in Europe as the crazy religious mecca, in fact, that call was from London. So, yeah, you guys have got your own young earth nut jobs there as well. It reminds me, one thing reminded me when he was making the appeal to the Bible is, the caller who calls in is like, haven't you ever read the Bible? And the answer is yes. Haven't you ever read anything else? The difference is that we've actually looked at the Bible. Some of us, by the way, were Christians for many, many years. There's no reason to think that what's in there is accurate, or in many cases, what's in there is demonstrably wrong and false. But right. I'm sorry that you happen to be offended by the truth. The truth, if you actually, you read about Muhammad's pedophilia in the Quran, which I don't think is actually true. I think it's reports outside of the Quran. But if you actually read your Bible, you'll find that my statement about a band of marauding, murdering, raping, pillaging Jews is actually accurate and lauded in the Bible as this is what God wanted them to do because they were his chosen tribe and screw everybody else on the planet. They had it coming. When Moses sends people out to kill the Midianites and says, hey, kill them all, and the soldiers come back and they say, we killed all the men, but we brought the women and children, and Moses says, what the hell's wrong with you? Are you trying to make God mad? Kill all the women, kill all the young boys, but keep all the young virgin girls for yourself. That's what your holy book says. That's the book that you're getting your information about. And by the way, your book doesn't say anything about the age of the earth or geology or anything like that. That's all interpolation by somebody counting back all the generations that are listed in the book until they get to Adam, who by definition, by fiat from that book, is the first man. So therefore, that must have been the beginning, and that's 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. Fortunately, not everybody who buys into your religion buys into it as much as you have. But we got Eric in Bloomington.
Oh, hi. It's Derek, actually. But,
Derek.
Good
Hi,
to be on
Derek.
the show. Hi. I don't know how much you guys know about the Sunday school version of the founding of the Mormon Church.
Next to nothing.
Okay, well, the story goes, and this is, again, the Sunday school version, is that Joseph Smith, as a young man, was in upstate New York, and there was it was a time of lots of revivals and lots of new Christian sects popping up all over the place, and he didn't know which one to join. So he prayed to God, and he said, which of these is the right one? And God evidently said, none of them. And so he said that we're going to found a new church, and he sent the angel Moroni, who led Joseph Smith to these golden plates.
Hey, Derek?
Yes?
I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. I'm passingly familiar with the origins of the Mormon religion. I thought you were mentioning something specific about Mormon Sunday school.
Yeah, well, this is just the Sunday school version. I'm sorry. It was.
Oh, okay.
I had a hard time hearing when they asked me what topic I was calling in on. But this is just the summary. Golden plates. But what I took away from this, and I think was probably unintentional, is that when God told Joseph Smith Jr. that none of these churches are godly, the lesson that I took from this is religions are not necessarily having a lock on truth. And I think that's probably not what they meant. They probably meant for me to believe that the church was, this, we've got it right now. But, pretty much from minute one, I'm like, we've got this Book of Mormon that's, this thick, and on golden plates it'd be the size of a small truck. And where did they go? So, needless to say, I fell away
That's
from
a brilliant point that I've
pretty
never
quick.
heard anybody else make.
Say again?
That's actually a brilliant point that I've never heard anybody else make.
Okay, well, and I actually wasn't a member of the Mormon Church. It was the Reorganized Church of Latter-day Saints, which is now called Community of Christ, because no, we're not the Mormons, just got too long-winded. I really what it is. They say it's not, but that's. I haven't been a member of the church in a long time, and one of the other reasons that I'm calling is the Community of Christ landed itself in the news a couple of weeks back, and I actually emailed you, Matt, about this, and you shot me a quick note back, which I really appreciated. But ever since, to make a long story short, there were some lay ministers in the church, a grandfather and three of his kids.
The church didn't get itself in trouble.
No, the church
a
did
particular lay minister committed some atrocities, and it's not in any way tied to the church. It's not like the church endorses, killing people and burying them in your backyard.
No. And I'm not calling in to defend them. What I'm calling in about is this. I've got this cognitive dissonance going on because I left the church like 10 years ago, and I've never looked back, but I never really had any bad experiences going out of it, and so when these allegations come up, I found myself like uncommonly defensive, and I didn't know what to make of that. And I just wanted to call in and get your take on it because I have a hard time thinking about it because on the other hand I don't know of any other scandals. I mean I know of no teaching from the church that would lead to that, but on the other hand, it's like you were telling the last caller, or the first caller rather, that when you have, a religion and you have bad people in the religion, the fact that they were lay ministers, to what degree did that give them deflection of suspicion?
Yeah.
And
I don't think that there's anything to worry about. I mean, you mentioned being a little concerned that you were defensive. You weren't necessarily defensive of the church. You were defensive of the truth. That's fine. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It's matter of fact, it's laudable. It's something that we should all engage in, and that is that, it often, especially in the news reports and things get blown out of proportion, and there are a number of fallacies where one thing is linked to another that is irrelevant. You hear about, for example, a woman was robbed today at the corner of 35th and Martin Luther King Boulevard, and the defendant or the suspect was black. Okay, well, thanks. I mean, maybe that's something you could include in the police report, but by and large, that type of thing is because of a stereotype and portrays a stereotype. The assumptions along those lines. So when we hear about a church has gotten itself in trouble. Those of us
remotely connected to the Mormon Church.
Those of us who have been involved and those people who care about the truth are reasonably defensive in saying, okay, there's a difference between what these individuals did and what the religion does. Until you can draw a causal link between the two, it's not really worth mentioning, apart from the point that you made about diverting suspicion, that the church protected them. There's a difference. There's a difference between, for example, the Catholic Church actively shuffling pedophile priests around and helping them avoid prosecution. It isn't the behavior of the priests that is a problem with the church. It is the church's reaction to the behavior of those priests that's a problem with the church. The sheltering. But
from what I understand,
I have nothing to add.
The local administration kind of threw them under the bus, as well they should have.
Yeah. And as a reminder, thanks for calling, Derek. I'm going to move on to another call real quick. But as a reminder,
thanks for taking my call.
Anybody who's interested in learning more about Mormon religion, David Kent did a special episode
Do we know the number of that episode?
No, but it's several years, 4 years ago or so. There were 3 people up here, and David Kent was one of them.
And I would recommend Under the Banner of Heaven by David Krakauer, I believe, is an excellent examination of the fundamentalist strain of Mormonism and Mormonism in general.
Okay. We've got Joe in Montreal.
Hi, how you doing, guys?
Good, how are you?
Dave.
Good. Just want to say I love what you guys do. It's my first time watching the show live, but it's great.
Thanks.
I'm calling because, my wife and I have been struggling with something recently. We lost our faith about within the last 4 years. And we came up in really religious families, really involved Christians. And, we all looked at our parents as heroes. And now, that perception of them is crumbling because we don't believe in anything that they're involved in, really.
Yeah.
And it's a painful thing to struggle with. And I just wondered if you guys have experienced anything like that. Anything you have to say to that?
Yeah. My parents, I grew up in a family that attended a Methodist church. My parents met as missionaries, in fact, in Cuba before Castro, have always been very religious. And once my brothers and I were grown and out of the house, they went back to seminary and became ministers. And that was shortly after that I realized that I was an atheist. Which, of course, has made it difficult to deal with what Mom and Dad had started doing. And I've tried to console myself that their intentions are good. And I think that that's fair. They really believe this stuff, and they really think that they're doing some good by promoting it. They're not, but they mean to, and their good intentions are not just limited to doing the religious stuff. They're nice people in general. So hopefully you've got that to hold on to.
Yeah, that is there for sure. One problem that oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, go on.
One problem that both my wife and I experience with our folks is that when we bring up Bible topics to them that we find atrocious or absurd, genocide, Abraham willing to murder his son, and those types of things, the responses that they give us are so offensive to us that, under normal circumstances, we wouldn't tolerate hearing, anybody saying these type of things, trying to justify those type of things. Hearing, our most close loved ones defending that stuff is just terrible.
Yeah. I understand, but let me tell you, from the other side of the coin, my mom in particular is a very, very liberal Christian, and she's perfectly okay with believing in Jesus and everything, but also thinking that as long as you are a decent human being, you don't get thrown into the flames after you die, right? But that's that just leaves me wondering, well, if the Christian religion is not really essential, Mom, to taking care of your afterlife, then why are you wasting your time on it? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that did not leave me in a better position as far as my view of the sanity of her position. It's nice that she's not a fire and brimstone fundamentalist, but it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Matt?
All our parents sort of lean a little more to the fundy side. Well, sorry, my wife and my parents.
Yeah, I went through a bit. We all lose some of our heroes at some point. It's almost a literary theme of your hero not living up to the idealistic image that you had, and a lot of it has to do, or usually I'd say it has to do with changes within you. One of the nice things about discovering that you are wrong or changing your mind about something is that it's bad in the sense that you're forced to look at your. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
No, I had a weird noise. It's bad that you have to look at your old beliefs, your old heroes, in a new light and come to some realization that perhaps some of the things that you thought were good are not good. But it's good in the sense that now you have a view that is more in tune with reality, and you can find new heroes. For example, there was a member of my family who was one of the most intelligent people in the family, and wise. And even though I didn't get to spend a great deal of time with him growing up, he was not just intelligent and fairly wise. He was respected in the family. He was a missionary for a time being, and seemed to be the kind of person that the other Christians in the family would go to for spiritual advice and support in much the same way that you would a minister. And while he wasn't a hero of mine, I certainly had an idealistic image of him. When it came time, when it was discovered by my family that I no longer shared their beliefs and was actively, in their view, working for Satan, he and I had a conversation. And here's, a college-educated physician and missionary, and the arguments that he presented were just laughable. I mean, right off the bat, it was Pascal's wager. And that was, I think, more shattering than anything, because I had this expectation that when I have this conversation with him, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one that, talking to my parents or grandparents or anybody else, other family members, not going to be that big a deal, because they haven't spent as much time studying this and they're not as familiar with the arguments. And I would expect Pascal's wager and circular arguments and glaring logical fallacies from them, and that's what I get. But I didn't expect it from him. And when that happened, there was a real sense of illusions crumbling about the status of a mind that I had at a minimum respected, although perhaps not looked at as a hero. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I have a bunch of other heroes. Some of them I've been fortunate enough to count among my friends, or at least associates. And they're people that I respect, not only for their intelligence, but also for their wisdom, the application of that intelligence to reality. And, I think my relationship with my family, it'll never be the same again. The best we can hope for is some new normal. I think you just got to keep looking forward and find the new heroes and realize that the people that you idolized, the reasons that you idolized them are what changed, not the individual.
Right.
And their intent, as Jeff pointed out, their good intentions, while they may be misguided, and it may be the case of good intentions that are actually doing, clear evil, I think that the best you can do is hope that they have a similar change, even though it may be incredibly unlikely.
Yeah, it seems unlikely in a lot of cases, at least in the older generation.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there.
Are you in the market for new heroes?
Well, I mean, I do have heroes of my own, but for sure, I mean, I'm always open.
I can recommend.
It's more a matter of, I'm sorry. Yeah,
I can recommend the celebatheists.com website, which is a nice collection of information on a lot of people in science and entertainment and throughout history who have been atheists, that you can look around through and say, oh, this guy whose work I have already appreciated, why, he's also an atheist. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
And also,
for
I'll give a quick shout out. There's a bunch of bad information on YouTube, but there's also a bunch of good information on YouTube. One of the individuals that I might count him amongst my heroes, or at least people that I admire for the work they're doing. Look for Aaron Ra on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Yeah, and he's in Texas, and I'd love to get him on the show, and I'm pretty sure that just saying that might already come close to making it a done deal. We kind of traded a quick exchange on my Facebook page, so we'll see about that. But and there's a lot of other people out there that are doing really good work. And it's while we tend to get a lot of backlash from fundamentalists that we're being hateful or whatever, I don't find that remotely true. And I find that a lot of those people just don't understand. Their worldview is so perverted by their religious beliefs, and that for the same reason that we can no longer idolize them, they cannot possibly understand why we might idolize others that are similar to us.
Right. I'm trying to do my part on YouTube as well.
Great.
As best I can.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a bunch out there. There's also a bunch of nonsense, and we've talked about quite a bit of that before.
Yeah.
And I get emails on a regular basis about things like Zeitgeist or Charia S and the various conspiracy theory nonsense that seems to pervade. There's no guarantee that just because somebody's an atheist that they're going to be rational or skeptical.
Correct. Bill Maher.
Yeah. And there's no guarantee that just because somebody's an atheist, they're going to be able to recognize that someone is not rational or skeptical, like the Atheist Alliance International, who gave Bill Maher the Richard Dawkins Award. But I don't want to hack on that all year. We've got David in Sarasota, Florida, who is rational and skeptical.
Is he? David?
How did you know that?
I know because we exchanged an email.
That's right. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah.
You have something to promote real quick, don't you?
Yeah, I sure do. Just want to let you. I'm sorry, I'm hearing some background there. Just want to let you know about the Sun Coast Skeptics, a new rational critical thinking group in the Sarasota area, but we're going to try to move beyond that if we get enough play. And the meetup site is meetup.com/Sun Coast Skeptics.
Okay, your audio is breaking up. I don't know what's up with the call, but it's meetup.com/Sun Coast Skeptics, correct?
That's right. Our first event is January 8th.
All right, January 8th. So if you're watching in the Sarasota, Florida area, and you've been looking for a group that includes skeptics, atheists, rational-minded people to spend some time with, January 8th, you can find out more information at their meetup group site. Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. We've got Michael in Vallejo.
Hello. How you
Hello,
doing?
Michael.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for asking. First, I wanted to ask you what your beliefs were, and then I wanted to talk to you about what my beliefs are.
Okay. You want to know what our beliefs are about what?
About God. Is there God or is there no God?
This is an atheist show. We don't believe in a God.
Okay. Essentially, what I want to do is to prove God.
Fantastic.
You can't possibly, and I haven't slept in a while, but
Could you define
I'm
God?
really excited. I've never been on TV before, and I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible.
Okay, does your definition, or does your proof include a definition of God? Because
yes, it does.
Okay, great.
I
Go for
never
it.
believed. I'm sorry, I'm just really excited. I never believed that God was what they said it was, but I've always believed in God, and I can't explain why. Well, I'm just going to read this to you and see if it makes sense to you. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Everything is everything. God is God. Accept it. Three things cannot long be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. This is just a label that we choose to put on. Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you write this?
I did actually write this.
Okay.
I'm just really excited because I just figured this out. Well, and I just wanted to share this with you. Time is just a label that we choose to put on an illusion. Religion is just a label that we choose to put on an illusion. Original sin is just a label that we choose to put on an illusion. And original sin is simply perception. Our own perspective on reality. Remember, everything is everything, and everything is under the powers of perception, except God, because God is omniscient. Because everything is everything, and everything knows everything. Does that make sense to you?
Nope.
Not a bit.
You might want to get some sleep. Get some sleep, and when you wake up, read that again yourself and see if it makes sense to you.
Okay.
Okay?
But I would like to make one point to you.
Sure.
Let me find it. 'Cause I have a very abstract mind, and I accept that. But Here it is. Let me find it. The eternal rule is that hatred does not cease by hatred, only by love. I find this to be true because everything is relative to everything. This is my theory of everything. Well, let's see where to start. I truly believe that in order to fix all the problems that we have in the world, we have to revert back to the basics, which is the original Ten Commandments. And if you take a close look at the original Ten Commandments, you will see that they are 100% flawless.
Really?
You can have your own perception on reality.
So
you're
all
that what perception
He
is.
can't hear us.
Michael,
Yeah, go ahead.
you say the Ten Commandments are perfect?
Well, everything is under the law of perception.
What?
What's true to you is not true to me. What's true to me is not true to you.
You've lost me.
Okay.
If you can't tell me things, Michael, if you can't tell me things that are true to me, then I have no reason to listen to you.
And quite frankly, every time we get into one of these discussions where somebody begins by spouting their own esoteric truth, I couldn't care less. If it's only true for you, then it doesn't matter to me at all.
Or to any of our listeners.
I care about truth that is true, that we all should.
I understand, because I had the same problems when I was trying to talk to my dad about this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have a TV, so I can't watch you guys.
Actually, you can, and I'm glad you mentioned that. If you go to the Atheist Experience website, www.atheist-experience.com, there's instructions there for how to click on the Ustream to watch the show streaming live over the internet.
And how do I do that?
The instructions are there at the webpage.
Read the instructions.
Anyway, do that and reread your thing and see if you can and get your thoughts together. And you're welcome to call in again next week when Russell and Martin are here. Thanks, Michael.
All right, thank you.
That is so cruel to poor Russell and Russell and Martin.
I love you guys, and I'm sorry. We got Steve right here in Austin. How are you?
Steve?
I'm doing good. I was just watching your show, and you had brought up Zeitgeist, and I had seen that maybe a year or so ago. And although I do have some objections to it, you had other objections to it, and I just wanted to. I don't watch you guys all the time, so what do you object to it in particular?
Wow. Okay, the movie's basically in three parts. The first part is about Christianity. And the last two parts are conspiracy theory bullshit. The first part is also conspiracy theory bullshit, and what happens is they take a bunch of disparate facts and they weave together a story that on the surface seems fairly compelling in order to reach a conclusion that is entirely unjustified. The fact that there are similarities between the Jesus narrative and other mythic savior figures is interesting and potentially tells us a lot about the people who create these myths, but it does not lead to the conclusion that the entire Christian religion was invented in the 4th century by the Pope and the Knights Templar and the Freemasons. Also, there's a bunch of unscholarly crap in there about, right off the bat, where they're talking about sunset, the English word being derived from the Egyptian god Set, and then where they try to connect paganistic seasonal religions to the imagery within Christianity is, to me, just over the top, and it's pretty much a case of I'm finding similarities between these two things, and so they must be related. Correlation isn't causation. And there are people who have spent their lives in good scholarship studying the history of these, of this religion and other religions, and investigating how they interact. And we know that religions adopt from other religions. We know that they change over time. We know that there is this mythopoetic structure that we use to create our heroic figures and saviors. And it's not surprising then, as similar creatures with similar goals in similar societies constructing similar myths, that we end up with similarities. To claim that this is because Christianity is just an invented overlay onto a previous pagan religion is, in my estimation, unjustified, and in the estimation of some of the more scholarly authors that I've read, is the same. But I find Zeitgeist to be an abominable film that takes a handful of valid points and strings them together into such obscene nonsense that I want to start wearing a tinfoil hat.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye.
I knew I should have mentioned Zeitgeist. So while we're waiting for the next callers to queue up, I want to remind everybody, because it's 5:30, the show's on until 6 o'clock, and after the show's over, we get together and go to dinner at Threadgill's on Riverside. I'm sure they'll pop the address up now that they've realized I'm talking about it. The phone number is up on the screen now. You'll be able to call from anywhere in the world, but as a reminder, since I haven't done this in a while, if you're calling from outside of Austin, please be patient, because we'd prefer callers local. We have a preference for contrary callers. I mean, we appreciate the people who call in to say, I love the show. And anybody who's got anything interesting to discuss, we're always open for that. But we do try to show a preference for callers that would provoke the kind of discussions that we're here for. If you're just another atheist who wants to talk about X, Y, and Z, come to dinner. We do a lot of that at dinner, and a lot of things that have nothing to do
every night
with religion. Also, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, the co-host, the other people behind the scenes who should show themselves, since camera 3 is now working. And I know they have a couple times in the studio.
Yeah, and by the way, would you guys mind removing us from the pits of hell, please? I personally have an issue with that, and I don't know if you're trying to...
That's not hell. That's
Martian... I'd like to not be in hell, please. Oh, great. I'm in with you guys.
No, we're really in hell. No! So, John, Frank, Joe, Steve, Shelley, all of them back there. Pan the camera up so they can see that beautiful HD TV multi-display that you guys use. If only we had as nice audio equipment.
We're not going to pan the camera while we're...
Whoa! Hang on.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have gone that way.
In a minute. My head is appearing inside my chest.
Yeah, if only the audio equipment was nearly as good as that. So there's a couple calls on the line. As soon as they're queued up, I'll get to them. As a reminder, in addition, you can go to the website. There's a frequently asked questions page and a number of other things as well. We don't have any super special events coming up in the next few weeks. But this idea that we talked about earlier about losing heroes, and then we have the caller about Zeitgeist, where this thing about building heroes is a fiction. My take on this, because we get asked all the time about this Jesus as a historical figure, is kind of along the lines of, how do you define somebody? For example, George Washington, we have it on good authority that this individual existed. It would be absurd to find out that he didn't exist. However, it's not absurd to find out that the story about the cherry tree is nonsense. That this little bit of myth has been glommed on to a life, a real life, one that is as historically verifiable as almost anybody else's. So when you say Jesus existed, what do you mean? Do you mean Jesus, this character as represented in the Bible, who said the things that he's reported to have said and performed the miracles that he's reported to have performed? Do you mean that individual existed? Because I see no reason at all to think that individual existed. What I have no problem with is the idea that there may have been and likely was, an individual, or perhaps several individuals, who lived around that time, whose life story had mythic elements glommed onto. Now, whether or not
and this
those
happens
were
all the time.
Yeah, whether or not those were borrowed from other traditions or not, doesn't equate to a conspiracy. But the people who would claim, and it's just nonstop, that the Bible, as one of the early callers did, Kent Hovind and Ray Comfort can demonstrate scientifically that the Bible is true. No, they can't. No, they can't. There's not a single extra biblical contemporary account of any event from the life of Jesus. That added to the fact that some of the things the Bible claims are clearly wrong, although apologists will try to spin them in a number of ways, means that we really can't say with any good reliability that this figure did exist. If every element of what we package together as the person is something that is questionable, virgin birth, what? Walking on water, what? The words, which don't necessarily match, which we don't have originals of, which we have no, good reason to think are anything other than sayings and stories, and the fact that they may have come from other written traditions. What exactly is it that you're saying existed? That's the important point. And I'm not sitting up here saying, Jesus never existed, that's nonsense, you shouldn't worship that, that's what's wrong with you? That's not the way this works. I'm simply saying that, even if he did exist, there's no evidence.
But I am here saying the angel Moroni never existed. So let's not give the impression that because we're willing to accept that there may well be an historical basis for the Jesus character in the Bible.
Yeah.
That therefore we think that there's a bit of truth behind every single piece of religious mythology that anybody cares to describe to us.
And remember, you can't have Moroni without moron. But we've got Michael in St. Louis.
Hello.
Michael, you there?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Good. By the way, I think you guys should change the background. This one's kind of boring.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of this one either.
Can't win. Try something else, guys. Experiment.
Anyway, my question is about the word atheist, because a lot of shows like this one are using the word atheist, and I'm wondering if you think it's kind of a misnomer, since people like Buddhists don't believe in God, yet they have all sorts of superstitious or what you would consider irrational beliefs.
So that makes the word atheist a misnomer? What do you mean?
Well, because basically the show is all about believing in evidence and rationality.
Uh-huh.
And
Dude,
atheist doesn't really have anything to do with that. Atheist just means I don't believe in a God.
I would love for that to be true, but I'd be the first to admit that it's not. You ever heard of Raelians?
Yes.
Raelians are atheists. They don't believe in a God. What they do believe in are space aliens. And not just in general. I believe it's incredibly likely that there's other intelligent life in space, but I don't believe they've been here, that they seeded life on Earth, and all this other nonsense that the Raelians believe. But I cannot deny that they're atheists. They are. Atheist is not some term that, if it applies to you, that means you're perfectly rational about everything. Wish it were true, it's not true.
So what I'm saying is, shouldn't you come up with a different word? Like, I've heard people use the word...
if we came up with some word that meant we're like the perfectly rational people, we couldn't use it, because we're not perfect.
Well, not perfect, but what about the word pluralist?
Who?
Like,
Pluralist,
have you
it's
heard
from Thunderfoot.
Pluralist stands for physical evidence and reason logic.
Yeah.
It's people who don't have any superstitions or anything like that.
Yeah, and before that, there was Bright, and...
any of those.
Yeah.
Those are all perfectly fine terms for the subset of people that those terms apply to. It doesn't make atheist a misnomer. We'd still be atheists.
It's almost like calling a Christian someone who believes in the Holy Spirit.
Calling a Christian a theist. A Christian is a theist because they believe in a God.
See, here's the problem. Yes, we're not just on this show to talk about atheism. As a matter of fact,
there's not much to say about atheism.
We are, though, atheists, and we are here talking about reality. We are talking about whatever God or religion the caller happens to talk about. We also happen to be, Jeff and I, skeptics, rationalists.
Yep.
I'm
a bright. Are you a bright?
I could be a bright. I fit the category for bright. I just don't like using it. There are any number of labels that might fit me. Bright, humanist, secular, rationalist, skeptic, atheist. I use the atheist label primarily because it's the one that gets that addresses the issue that I find most important. For example, within the whole community of skeptics, not everybody is a theist, is an atheist. There's a subset of skeptics that are atheists. And it's fine that there are skeptics who don't care at all about the religious issue. They focus on homeopathy or psychic claims or whatever else. That's fine. It's all good stuff, and I applaud them. And I go to TAM, and I am friends with skeptics, and I am a skeptic. I am focused on this subset. For example, not all atheists are skeptics. So whatever that overlapping subset is, that's what I'm focused on. But I fit both categories. There's no reason for me to pick either label over the other. I just do.
Yeah, I think it's more important that for everybody to understand what the terms mean, and so that when they're used, you know what's being said, than it is to find some perfect magical term that is will exactly specify the particular tiny subgroup you want to fall into.
And I've got a Venn diagram that you won't be able to see. There's a circle right here, and it's theist. Everything outside is, according to the definition that I use.
Mr. Camera's trying to zoom in.
That's I can't see it at all.
Yeah,
it's zooming in. There.
Everything that's not anyone that's not a theist is an atheist. That's the definition I'm using. But the reason I do that is because the theism is the objectionable part. As a skeptic, I am bringing to light the fact that theistic claims are not supported by evidence, they are not rational, they are not scientific, and there is no reason for anybody to believe them. And even if an individual could perhaps be justified by their own experience, there is no reason for anyone else to be convinced, and there's certainly no reason for any of us to kowtow to the claims of people in this theistic category. There's no reason for special treatment. There's no reason for deference. There's no reason to worry about saying, oh, we shouldn't talk about that for fear that we might offend the crazy people. We don't do that with any other unproven category. Religion is the exemption. And yet religion, theism and religion encompass the majority of the planet and have for the majority of our history. And this is where the majority of the potential and actual harm, I feel, is coming from. And that's why I'm focused on this area. I could do a skeptic show, but it would be unfair because I'm focused more on this one issue. And so I use the atheist label.
Okay, well, I get your point, but I still think you should make a new name so you can include Buddhists.
Yet another
Buddhists are atheists.
Yeah, Buddhists are atheists.
Most of them, not all.
I know,
need a
but
new term.
They don't follow. They don't follow your philosophy or the ideas of the show. That's all I'm saying.
Do they believe in a God?
Language, basically.
To the extent that they don't believe in a God, they are atheists.
Yes, they're absolutely atheists.
Okay.
By definition.
So what's the problem?
That they have supernatural beliefs. They believe in an afterlife. They believe
that space aliens created.
Aliens too. I know that they're included in those groups. In the group of.
He's objecting that they're not atheists as we represent atheists.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's because you are assuming that we're here representing atheism. We're not. There's nothing to represent.
I'm assuming that because that's what the show is titled. I know you're not.
No, I think we are here representing atheism, and I think that you can represent a group and present the best arguments in defense of the core thing about that group that they all share in common, which in this case is not believing in any gods, right? We are here to present the best arguments for not believing in any gods. Now, if some Raelian wants to take that and say, okay, I don't believe in any gods, but I do believe in these space aliens. Or if a Buddhist wants to say, I don't believe in any gods, but I do believe that Buddha was specially enlightened and I believe the things that he said. Then that doesn't make us not representing atheism. We're focusing on the core thing that it's about.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on.
You guys made too many shows to change the name anyway.
This, I think that
600 shows. It's too late to change the name, but I wouldn't anyway. Oh, wait, I'm following it. For some reason, I am getting updates. Okay, cool. I'll get back. Thanks a lot, Michael. Appreciate the call.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the name discussions. Should we call ourselves this? Should we call ourselves that? Oh, this new group started up and they're using this term. I find that almost the most tedious thing in this in my entire involvement in atheism. Almost the most tedious discussion that there can be. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of. That's why we have a lot of words, so we can have nuanced differences between words. But you know, trying to impose a particular meaning on a term that's already got a meaning, or trying to make up a new term to cover some new subgroup, it's like, oh, good grief.
It's almost as bad as trying to redefine it. Sam Harris tried to promote this, let's get away from the atheism word and use another one, and I ripped into him on an episode of Nonprofits last year, or maybe in the past year, for doing that. The thing is, it's too late. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Ask a pluralist, are you an atheist? Yep. Ask a bright, are you an atheist? Yep. Oh, they may deny it, they may not use it, but when you say, do you fit this category that I would call atheist, their answer is yes. And the only reason to change that is to avoid the baggage. Well, you can't avoid the baggage. Instead, I am of the opinion, and I may be wrong, that it's better for us to adopt that label, wear it proudly, and try to change people's perceptions to eliminate some of that baggage, to enlighten people as to what we're really talking about. We got, is this the same Steve in Austin or another Steve in Austin?
Another Steve.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Pretty good. Listen, I was going to talk about evil. Somebody came up to me and asked me, or told me, they said that the worst thing that they thought was being called stupid, and they just really hated being called stupid. And I told them that they were so stupid for giving me that amount of information. And I thought it was funny. They thought it was evil.
Maybe it was both. I don't know that the two are mutually exclusive.
But I see things. I just see things as kind of funny because I kind of split the spiritual world from the or the ethereal world from the corporal world, and it just seems funny that when I read the Bible, it seems to me that the Jews went after some people that worshipped cows, and then turned around and started worshiping a day of the week. And it seems like they're doing the same thing.
Not following you.
Well, the Jews have the Sabbath.
Uh-huh.
And when the Jews left Egypt,
yeah,
it was the land that they took over. The people were worshiping cattle or...
Yeah. They don't worship a day of the week. They worship on. They may have particular important religious practices that they conduct on a particular day of the week.
Well, they call it a holy day.
Sure.
And they do it in a holy land.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, holy cow, what's the difference?
Okay, on some level, it doesn't matter to me whether they worship a day or worship on a day. The very idea that they're worshiping something is the issue.
Yes, that's true. But if you're going, it's kind of like.
Are you doing stand-up somewhere in Austin, Steve? Would you care to let our audience know where they can see you?
No.
Okay. Because you're doing a comedy routine on us, so I'm sorry, we're not laughing along because we actually care about these issues.
I see a lot of things as funny, but basically, it's the split is between. For me, it's the ethereal is like the surface, and the corporal is like the stuff. And people throw things at you from cosmological or science or any number of ways of trying to describe that. The surface. You can gain a lot of information about what's inside from looking at a surface, but the surface is not real. And from that point, you could say, well, God isn't real. But in a way, you would also have to say, if you took it deeper, you'd have to say, okay, what do we know about this surface, and what do we know about consciousness and who we are? And you would have to look at it and see how we are mapped out, in our brain, which is basically a surface. And we are not that surface. We are the pattern inside of it.
I'm going to stop you because my eyes are glazing over. The whatever language that you're using, and I don't mean that as a slight to say that you're not speaking English. I'm saying the specific words that you're choosing are these vague, ill-defined. I have no clue what you're talking about. The surface, the ethereal. Why is there a weed behind my head? The surface. Oh, I got you. Good one. I just don't get what your point is.
Okay, well, again, my point is basically that there's a consciousness and there's emotions, and when I try to map them out, people's eyes glaze over because I guess it's just too complicated for them.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your call.
Cool.
That's right. It's too complicated for us. It's not.
Has nothing to do with what was in the pipe.
Nothing had nothing to do with the content of what he was saying. Being kind of pointless and
somebody called it, what
rambling.
was it, the glass pipe fallacy? You can only believe that if you're on crack. So lines are clear. We got, oh no, they're not clear. They're starting to fill up. You better hurry if you want to get your spot. There's exactly 8 minutes left in the show.
Wow, this has been a big day for people's personal philosophical ramblings.
Yeah, usually it's just my day for personal philosophical ramblings. You want to roll the dice? Just really screw over the control room?
We just take a call without...
Hey, I don't know if you've been screened. I'm on line 3. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Chuck. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Chuck,
Chuck,
did you talk to a call screener?
No, but
Good.
I'm all right. I'm not going to say.
I don't care. I was just willing to throw caution to the winds. What do you got for us, Chuck?
Oh, okay. Well, I've been listening to y'all for a long time, but I haven't tuned in quite a while. But today, y'all are getting a lot of really freaky people, a lot of freaky calls. Anyway, I just wanted to say something. All of you people who, really haven't got it together, your religion, whether you believe in it or not, I always tell people to just read about the Inquisition, and that'll explain a lot of things to you about religion. First of all, I don't think that we would even have Christianity today if it wasn't for the Inquisition. And for the people who don't know what the Inquisition is, that was lasted about 700 years in Europe. And pretty much, if you didn't believe in God, they hung you or burned you at the stake or, destroyed you. And, if these people who are confused about religion, if they'll just go to your computer and type in Inquisition and read all about it, and that'll kind of, help them, maybe, shed a little light on this problem that they're having with religion.
Yeah, the Inquisition was the time when Christianity was like the Taliban is today.
Exactly. And that was kind of pretty much, in fact, the last time I brought up the Inquisition, I was at a party, and they said the Taliban, they force people to be Muslims, I guess, or Islam or whatever. They force people. I say, well, do you remember? Do you know anything about the Inquisition?
Yeah.
And that kind of, Christians, they really don't know. They don't know how to come back from that.
Yeah. Well, they will say, now defending Christians for a moment here, they will say, well, they don't deny that people can misapply the teachings. Right. That it's part of their belief that people are inherently sinful and will do bad things. But then, my response to that when talking about things like the Inquisition is, so what you're telling me is people are so bad and your teachings are so unclear that for a period of 700 years throughout an entire continent, there could be practically nobody who was properly following those teachings. And you think you're still part of the same religion, even though it went through that 700-year period.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's probably a better response than my normal one, which is to say that it's not a misapplication of the religion. It's the proper application if you read the book. Either one of them, it's the willful ignorance, especially of modern Christians, is appalling. The only good thing is that yeah, we've dragged their religion kicking and screaming out of the Dark Ages and made it a little more socially responsible and tolerable. And, okay, how much credit do they get for that? None. The fact that they became better people and stopped, it's the example that I've used over and over again. If you're beating somebody on the head with a stick and I make you stop, I'm not violating your right to practice your religion. The fact that they stopped because everybody else around them kept sneering whenever they would, beat somebody over the head doesn't earn them cool points. But,
right. Yeah. I am, I'm an atheist, but I guarantee you, if somebody came and knocked on my door and dragged me out into the street and said, convert to Christianity or die, I would become a Christian so fast, they'd make me a saint.
Yeah, anybody can play lip service.
Yeah, you're only saying that, of course, though, because they can't get away with that right now.
Right, but they did from about 1200 until 1800.
Right.
And we're talking 1800. I mean, that's only a couple of hundred years ago.
Yeah, I gotta let you go, Chuck, because there's another call waiting, and we're almost done with the show. But thanks a lot. We've got Alan here in Austin. Hello?
Alan?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Alan.
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering if I've heard that aliens came down and interbred with humans about 200,000 years ago to create the people that live on Earth today. And I was wondering if you had heard about that.
I know that there's people that believe that, yes.
Okay, yeah, because I'm reading on Wikipedia about these huge megalithic structures, and it just doesn't seem that people could have made those. It seems like aliens came down.
You don't think people could stack up blocks?
I recommend a website called the Skeptics Dictionary.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for your call.
Okay.
The idea that people couldn't stack up blocks always catches me by surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, take a lot of people and some time, but we've had a long time, and slave labor is wonderful for building monuments. By the way, it's just not very good for the slaves.
How do they move such massive stone blocks?
We've got Janet in Austin.
Hi there.
I wish I'd have. I'm going to stop talking because Jeff says funny stuff.
Hi, is this Janet?
Hi. Yeah.
You get to be the last caller, and you've got 40 seconds.
Oh, no.
I know.
On that last guy, I think it was, we're bad science projects of scientists from other planets.
Yeah.
What we are. But I did have a friend that was an Iranian, and she had a rent house, and she had it completely destroyed. And I said, why did you rent it to those people? And she goes, because they said they went to church every Sunday, and they were Christians. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. But the last comment is, don't you think people do need something to believe in? I mean, people are weak. They have to have something to believe in. You had a caller a couple of weeks ago that said, hey, I'm not racist.
I gotta cut you off, Janet. We're out of time.
I would do something bad if I didn't have something to believe in.
We'll answer. I think it's a fine thing to believe in stuff. Just people should make more of an effort to believe in stuff that it seems to actually be true.
And I'm not cynical enough to think that people need a watchful sky guardian in order to be decent. Thanks a lot to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to the people behind the scenes who are making the show work better and better every week. There's the information about our credits and stuff. You can join us at Threadgills shortly. We are out of time. We'll be here again next week. It's Russell and Martin. Enjoy. I'm going to duck. Look.
Aha.
It's like a Mario game.
Wow.